It is time for a little bit of a confession, a real path with a real God in an unreal and twisted life. That's how I see it. My name is Emmanuel, and today I will share a little bit of my life, my personal walk with God. And I've been sharing lately a little bit about my eyes and the kind of struggles that I've gone through and how God shows up and reveals things that makes me, I get a deeper understanding, and I get the confirmation that I'm not alone in this, not at all. So lately he dealt with me, showing me that I needed to get eyes of faith, that he wanted to give me eyes of faith. And I came to that, understanding after my eyesight had actually gone really bad. But after he showed me these kind of things and I got the understanding that I think he wanted me to have, my sight came back to normal. I had been working on graphic images for weeks, and there were certain images that had small errors, fine lines that I couldn't see. But suddenly, after people had been praying for me and I'd been in dialogue with God on these things, then I started to understand what was behind these things. Suddenly, 2 times in one day, I saw fine lines, small errors in graphics I'd been dealing with for weeks, and I never saw them. I never saw the errors that I'd made. There was a square that I'd forgotten to remove. It wasn't supposed to be there, but the line was thin and I couldn't see it. Suddenly, I saw it. And it didn't just happen in one instance. It was another, it was 2 different images, and in one day. And as I recognized the second one, I realized that, something has happened. I actually see more than I have for weeks now. And that kind of confirmations is just heartwarming. It makes me understand that, I know you are there, God. You are in control. And in this process, there was something else that was coming up, and that was a large belt. I really saw it, and I felt that God was showing me that soon I would walk into a position, or I would come in a position where I would be given a large belt, like what you put on when you go to war. You would have to have the breastplate and the helmet and all of these other things as well. But what I was shown was the belt, and it was thick, out of metal. It was not, not a small and lightweight thing. Very robust. And around it, there were 12 points, like circles, and they were like mounting points for fire hoses. Do you call it that? Like when a fireman is taking the hose to let the water burst out of it, and it looked like that. And I knew that there was, water, living water was going to flow out of it, out of this belt. And it ties into things that I've been working, or God has been working with me for decades. So I knew that the number 12, I knew exactly what it was about. And I understood, it was easy for me to understand that it was about the living water. But the belt signified that it had something to do with truth, because in the Bible it speaks about the belt of truth. If you want to read more about that, go to Ephesians. I think it's Ephesians 6. It talks about the armor of God. And these hoses that was going to be connected to the belt, well, that was just an extension of, getting the water out there. And as I got that vision, so I kind of like understood parts of what it was related to, because God has shown me and worked with a concept related to these 12 gates or 12 aspects for a long, long time in my life, but I had no idea what it would look like in real life, because it is my experience that when you get a dream or a vision like this, sometimes it can be long term, and speaking of the big lines in your life, and sometimes it can be purely symbolic and purely like a big fluffy theme. But most of the time, even if it is symbolic, of course I'm not getting a physical belt, but even if it is symbolic, most of the time it speaks of something very, very practical. Like you can point at it and say, oh, there it is. It is this project, or it is this situation, or it is this emotion, or this. Most of the time, it is anchored in something very, very practical and real and relevant. So I was curious as to, what is this going to look like in real life? Okay, from a spiritual perspective, we can see it as a belt and hoses and living water and truth and things like that. But what is it going to look like in real life? I knew that the 12, that's connected to colors, and I have things that I want to share around that. I do believe that I will need to write it as a book, because it is complicated and it is intricate and it is interesting, and you kind of like have to give the whole, well, either you just give one sentence like a teaser, or you have to dig in and give the whole image and the whole connection sort of concept. So I was wondering, okay, am I getting to that stage? Am I gonna start writing the book? How am I gonna do that? I have so many other things to do, and my eyes, and it just doesn't feel like it's ready. But okay, whatever you want, God. But now I've come to the realization of what it meant in practical terms. Because without thinking about these things, I've started producing what it's about. Because without most people knowing it, I am working on developing products. God has led me to, it's just opened the doors. This is something that I've been longing for decades. I've seen it, and I've known all the details, and I wondered, how am I going to do that, God? Because I know that with this concept, with the 12 colors and the 12 qualities of God that comes with them, I really just all the time I saw it as products. Not because I wanted to sell. I hate selling and promoting and that kind of stuff, but I love creating. And I was shown how these kind of things can influence us. It is the understanding and the awareness of how God's creation works and influences us. That is what I'm gonna share in the book. But it seems that God wants me to make the products first and just demonstrate it. I'm so excited about these things. So without thinking about it, without understanding what I was doing, I was producing and designing products. And while I was doing that, bit by bit, it started to form itself after the structure that I've been, focused on for decades. Exactly these 12 different aspects and the truth behind it. So something is definitely going on, and it is just incredible to get a vision like that and suddenly you're doing it. It is confirming God's presence, but also God's communion, like the dialogue that is going on. You get an impulse and then you see it happen. It is unfolding like flowers budding and coming into blossoming. I didn't make up this. But when we follow a God that is real, we take one step in faith and we hear a word or we see a vision and we follow and we have faith. And maybe it takes 10 years, maybe it takes 20, but it will come. And I've been waiting for these things for such a long time. I had no idea how to do it. It was frustrating. But I kept focusing on it. I kept feeding it. I kept believing in it somehow. And now it seems to start. Now, I was dealing with God with something else. Just practical issues. And I was putting it in front of him, kind of like explaining, not that he needs that kind of explaining, it's me that needs that, but I did that. And he interrupted me. While I was talking about this very practical topic that was related to other people, it was as if he interrupted me and said, that color, that ruby color that you used earlier today when you made that product, I like that. You did really well there. And I'd been focusing on, it was authority and it was ruby and it wasn't my kind of color. I don't like that color. But I'd been using it because I felt it was the right thing to do. And so he kind of like interrupted me in my speech, saying that, oh, I like that. You did well. And I was like, God, you're interrupting me. What are you doing? And, I went on. But a little bit later, I brought up the same issue once again. Focused in on this thing about other people. And he started once again interrupting me. That color that you brought up today. You chose it even if you didn't like it. I love that. You did really well. I was like, God, what are you doing? But I understood. The second time I understood. He was saying that by me choosing the color that was not natural for me to choose, I was choosing something that was right, but it was also something with that quality and that color that was what I needed. Because I didn't like the color, that was kind of like a sign that I had a problem with this quality that it represented. And so by choosing that, although my flesh or my emotions or, some part of me had a problem with it, it was the exact right thing. It was the remedy for the problem or the issue that I was bringing. So when he was interrupting me, I was into this very practical thing, important. And then he started talking about colors. What are you doing? But I understood. It was the answer. It was the remedy. It was the way to get balance and sort and solve the whole kind of, the root of the problem in the first place. And so I keep getting these things with colors and shapes and qualities, and it is so inspired by God. And now I know more than ever that this is some of the things that he is working to get out in the world through me. I'm sure He's doing this with a lot of people. But I'm just sharing what's going on in my life. And as I started to understand that this is really what He's doing, like yesterday, I was making a label, and I just suddenly saw a crown on top of it. And I was like, is that God? Is that you, God? Are you showing me that it should be a crown on top of this? But I saw a crown on top of it. I was like, okay, you want a crown there? Okay, let me think, how can I do that? And then I've started doing it. So I'm gonna name this file God the Designer, because that's how I really see Him. He is such an incredible designer. Just look at the nature. What we people make is not even close to what He can make. And when we make something that is great, it is most often because it is influenced by Him, or at least His nature. So by that, I just wanted to share these things. It's working in me. I am baffled by it. It is so exciting and so beautiful. And as the rain is pouring down outside, and you could probably hear it, I'm gonna finish this little section, and I hope that you get to feel God's presence this way as well, because He has things to say to you also. God loves you, and He always will.